Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session where we will learn how adding financial controls makes Microsoft Project OnlineServer an even better PPM solution. Our speaker is Ben, who is UMT360's Chief Product and Marketing Officer. Ben is responsible for the strategic direction and worldwide go-to-market activities for UMT360's enterprise portfolio management solutions. Ben, take it away.
Thank you very much, and hello, everyone. So again, welcome to today's session. We're really going to look today at how to integrate financial management best practices and controls across the PPM lifecycle, specifically how UMT360, a solution, can seamlessly add cost and benefit capabilities natively to both Project Online and Project Server. So before we jump into today's session, just a brief introduction on who we are, UMT360, if you're not familiar with us. And then we'll jump into the meat of today's session. And I'm really going to do a couple of slides today, but focus most of the time on a live demonstration so you can see the solution in action. So at UMT360, we're seen as leaders in enterprise portfolio management. Now, I'm definitely the first to admit that enterprise portfolio management is an ambiguous term at best, as different vendors from different spaces kind of converge on the subject area or domain. Here at UMT360, we've always seen enterprise portfolio management as a top-down discipline, a discipline where organizations need to provide or be provided with better business planning controls to provide the transparency and insight needed to transform the way they manage all enterprise investments. Now, that could be the way that they manage investments in strategic activities like projects or programs, or that could be how they manage other portfolios such as IT asset portfolios or product portfolios that are consuming scarce budget and resources. In the background here, you see some of the accolades we received over the years, and specifically they've been chosen just because they showcase the breadth of our offering. The Cool Vendor Award given to us back in 2012, which seems a long time ago now. But you only get a Cool Vendor Award from Gartner once in a vendor's lifetime, and we've simply given it in the area of program and portfolio management. And really, what reason why it is relevant for today's discussion is the year that we awarded that Cool Vendor rating was when Gartner was assessing vendors' ability to integrate financial management capabilities across the traditional project and program lifecycle, which again tightly aligns with the topic of the day. We're also seen by Gartner as a visionary in integrated IT portfolio analysis. Now, for those of you that are Gartner junkies, you may remember that the integrated IT portfolio analysis Magic Quadrant replaced the IT PPM Magic Quadrant back in 2011. And Gartner wanted to focus on a new emerging space, one which was looking at how to more effectively orchestrate all IT investments. So that is based on the better integration of projects, programs, applications, infrastructure portfolios. So you get visibility across all IT activities, all IT spend, and can better orchestrate IT in terms of the strategic direction of the business. And again, UMT360 is seen as a visionary player there. We've also obviously a Microsoft PPM Gold partner, have been building solutions that seamlessly extend SharePoint and Microsoft Project Online and Project Server for many years. So the solution I'm going to show you today is seamlessly integrated with both Project Online and Project Server and is a native SharePoint application. So when I think about some of the solutions that customers start with on top of Project Online or Project Server, we're going to take a look at integrated financials for PPM today. So how to make financial information and data a first-class citizen within the Microsoft PPM platform, giving both the transparency and insight needed to make more timely decisions on these important projects or business investments. The next solution customers start with UMT360 is enterprise program management, which really operates under the guise of needing to better align execution with strategy, provides a systematic way to decompose strategy into key investment programs, into projects, and ensure that execution remains in lockstep with strategic priorities of the organization. Also provides the PMO and strategic planning officers with the tools to better master different planning cadences, multi-year, annual planning, and this new concept. Actually, we presented on this yesterday in this conference of dynamic planning or continuous planning. And last but by no means least, many of our customers are recognizing the fact that projects and programs don't exist in a vacuum, and that they're really funded to make a change to something in the organization, onboard a new IT asset, enhance a business capability or product, whatever it may be. So we need to really understand these broader enterprise connections and start to apply portfolio thinking and techniques to managing business and IT asset portfolios. So the solution caters for asset portfolio management too, as well. Okay, so having done the brief introduction, let's jump in and focus on financials for PPM. Now, starting a little broadly, what we're seeing is that traditional PPM tools and processes are failing to deliver the anticipated results. So when I say traditional, what I'm really talking about is more execution-orientated sort of project and resource management capabilities. I think the stats on the right-hand side here are fairly well understood, whether it's the Standish Group saying that 18% of projects fail to get implemented, or 43% of projects come in challenged, or Gartner saying that 1 out of 3 completed projects experience cost overruns, or the good old PMI saying that 33% of projects fail to deliver on their intended goals. At UMT, we've been in the project and portfolio management space for longer than I care to remember. Our own research shows that based on these stats and some other factors, organizations today that are relying on more execution-orientated PPM techniques only are at risk of losing around 46% of the planned business value from their project and program investments. Another way to look at that is that around 50% of the investment in these strategic initiatives is at risk. Now, we could go a lot deeper into this, but I'm going to keep it at a pretty high level today. What we found is there's 3 primary areas that result in that 46% of business value erosion, something I like to call the trifecta of business value erosion. And I'm not going to go too deep into any of them, but we're going to focus more on the second one today. So the first is unreliable planning. So unreliable top-down planning. There's different reasons why organizations fail to be able to select and identify the right demand for the upcoming period, whether it's the ineffective definition, decomposition, and communication of the business strategy from the get-go, whether it's relying on more bottom-up, almost chaotic planning techniques, which may result in the wrong set of projects being proposed in the first place, or whether it's something as basic as just the ongoing adherence to a set it and forget it way of working from an annual planning perspective versus understanding the fact that variables will change throughout the year and having more of a dynamic planning framework to change course as needed. Poor financial insight is where we're going to really focus on today. I think it's fair to say that financial information and data has been, in many PPM processes and tools, been treated as a second-class citizen. But as we start to view these important projects more as business investments, we must provide greater financial transparency and insight into supporting business decisions. So we need to look at how we improve our ability to build out more accurate estimates as part of the business case. We must better understand the impact of cost overruns at the portfolio level and how that has on what impact that has on business value. Something that has always been a surprise to me is we also must look at the problem around budget utilization, leaving money on the table and not spending everything by the end of the year. Obviously is going to impact the amount of value that we can gain from the portfolio. So budget utilization is another area of concern. The third area, and outside of the context of today's discussion, is a lack of portfolio visibility. It's going back to that asset portfolio management discussion I had 2 slides ago, where really we need to be able to understand the enterprise connections across our portfolio, across projects, programs, business assets, IT assets, all of which really come together to impact our overall resource capacity and budget that's available for the year. So ability to look across portfolios, the ability to bring together often siloed domains like the project, application, and infrastructure portfolio example I gave earlier, and the ability to sort of build strategic roadmaps that show the cross-portfolio impact of any change is areas that we need to improve in terms of portfolio visibility. But as I said, we're going to focus today more on poor financial insight. Another area, in addition to the 46% challenge PMO faces, is one of disconnected systems and manual processes, meaning the PMO spends far too much time manually reconciling information and building reports, and less time really focusing on strategic activities and looking at opportunities to take corrective action. And if we drill down really into the financial side here, I think this slide really resonates. When you think about financial information, certainly within a Microsoft PPM environment, often it's held in siloed systems. Maybe the upfront business case could be represented in a high-level custom field, but often is the financial details is broken down in Excel and stored in a project site. As we move into execution, the actual cost information is obviously held within the system of record, tools like SAP or PeopleSoft, Oracle Financials, and others. So how do we start to bring together financial information into our Microsoft PPM platform solution so that PMOs, sponsors, and other stakeholders have that information at their fingertips, the same way that schedule and resource information is at their fingertips? Now, one of the things that we see happening in the marketplace at the moment, and really looking to address that 46% business value problem, is that many PMOs are looking to move from a tactical focus into a more strategic-minded function. And the simple acknowledgement that today, many PMOs have been more tactical in their outlook and taken real responsibility for more of the execution-orientated activities of delivering project and program portfolios. Now, I'm not understating or underplaying the importance of these capabilities. They remain as important today as they were yesterday. But all I am saying is, as a strategic PMO, we really need to recognize the fact that these projects are not just projects. They're in fact business investments. They're funded to make fundamental changes to the organization, drive new revenue, reduce costs, align with compliance mandates. And we've got to treat them as such. And if we view these as business investments versus tactical activities, then we must, as a PMO, start to take strategic responsibility for optimizing spend and maximizing value across the portfolio. So I think today the PMO has a challenging task. They have to be very comfortable in almost wearing two hats or fulfilling two roles. One is the more traditional tactical role of the masters of project program delivery. So I think of that as wearing almost my PMI certified hat to master all aspects of project and program delivery and execution. But when I put my more strategic hat on, I think the PMO today needs to become more of the CFO of the project and program portfolio and take active responsibility for optimizing spend and maximizing value at any given point. And when you think about taking that more of the CFO mindset of a project and program portfolio, obviously financial information is going to be key to integrating across your process, whether that's top-down budget information, cost-benefit information, whatever it may be. So when we think about integrating financial controls in Project Online and Project Server, we really want to make sure this information becomes a first-class citizen within the Microsoft PPM platform. I don't want financial information summarized at a macro level in a custom field. I also don't want necessarily to force a sponsor or stakeholder or user to start to break down financial information in a detailed schedule too early within the planning cycle for that project. So I want to make sure that financial information is captured, consolidated, and reconciled across the PPM life cycle so it becomes a first-class citizen. And more important, that data becomes governable, just the same way that resource and schedule and other metadata captured in Microsoft PPM is governable, but as importantly, becomes a more easily reportable at any given time. So when we think about integrating financial controls for Project Online and Project Server, you can think about bringing these sort of four pillars into play. We want to bring to bear top-down budgeting capabilities. We're not just interested in capturing the project costs and reporting on that. We also want to integrate top-down budgets. So the ability to be able to organize portfolio hierarchy, could be departmental, could be portfolio, program, project, sub-project, and have the flexibility to record budgets at any point or at any level within that hierarchy, and then roll up budgets from the underlying projects and compare and contrast. We also want to look at improving the accuracy of cost and benefit estimates. For me, going away from just a simple custom field representing total cost or cost by year, and actually having the ability to look at multi-year cost, have the ability to drill down to varying levels in a cost or benefit financial structure is key. How do we also now look at streamlining and automating the financial status reporting process to drive variance and insight needed to take decisions? So bringing together and reconciling information from the ERP system automatically, providing an interface for the PM to easily report on actual costs, remaining costs, and have that recorded alongside other metadata that is apparent or important for the project status report. So think about how do you automate that financial status reporting and monthly, and let's say monthly closeouts on a periodic basis. It's also fair to say that financial information is going to be apparent in the project from cradle to grave. So whether it's the upfront budgeting, top down, bottom up, or whether it actually goes beyond the life of the traditional project into establishing frameworks to track results. I think it's fair to say that many organizations still aspire to have benefits realization framework, but we need to go beyond just using a project's business case to get a project funded and actually start to use that as an artifact to start to track benefits and actually see how good we are at benefit estimating and our ability to realize those resulting benefits. So we'll look at these sort of 4 areas, but again, the sort of overarching pitch is how do we make sure that financial information becomes a first-class citizen within the Microsoft PPM environment. Now, having worked with many customers over the last 5 or 6 years, specifically to integrate financial management capabilities with their PPM solution, I think that financials over that period has become a recognized and needed area within any Microsoft PPM or any PPM deployment at large. And I think going back 10 years ago, the financial requirements coming out of RFPs were normally quite high level and rudimentary. But today, they're anything but. And so here are some of the areas that we commonly see customers needing support on from a financial perspective within their PPM process, whether it's the ability to integrate financial controls or investment governance controls across the PPM lifecycle. So how do I make sure I'm capturing the right level of financial information at any given stage in the workflow as it's defined within the Microsoft PPM environment? We already talked about the need to do a better job of integrating top-down budgets and reconciling with the underlying budgets from the projects that are being teed up within the demand management process. Time phase cost and benefit estimating is certainly key too. So there's a concept that I see a lot, which I kind of nickname now financial amplification. So that's the concept of at the early stages of the project's life in the business case, maybe only high-level financial information is required. But the deeper you get into the planning process and execution of that initiative, more and more and more financial information is required. So how do you systematically go from a yearly granularity into a monthly granularity and an explosion of financial information and automatically spread information at those lower granularities? So time phase cost estimating at varying levels of granularities is important. The ability to derive financial metrics and benchmarks is also becoming key. Because we want to do a better job of just reporting on project costs, how to deal with things like multi-departmental funding allocations? If you have multiple departments funding an initiative, how to reconcile that on a percentage basis, on an absolute basis. Depending on where you are and the size of your organization, multi-currency may be applicable to you. So again, geographically dispersed projects or companies with businesses in different countries may require multi-currency. So how to systematically break down the different currencies and manage the exchange rates on an ongoing basis. Snapshotting is another area that's key and often is the gift that keeps on giving. So how to record financial versions and snapshots at any point in the project's life and effectively report on that. Contingency management is another area where we look to, obviously provide a level of contingency at the project level, but at the portfolio level, get oversight in terms of how much of that contingency is being used and whether there's an opportunity through that execution year to release contingency and free up funds for additional project investment. We talked about financial status reporting already to a degree. How do we automate that ongoing recurring process of status reporting, let's say on a monthly cadence, better integration with the ERP system, so we have data fidelity from a budget actuals and obviously estimate to complete or forecasting perspective. How to automate change requests. So when a project requires more funds, or conversely, you want to give money back because the estimates were too high to be reinvested, so the ability to raise a positive change request or even a negative change request and surface that and govern that through the appropriate approval chain is key. Get a lot of organizations looking to reconcile purchase orders with projects and also look at things like committed costs. So, maybe the total committed costs are based on the total approved purchase orders. So if you're looking to cancel a project, it's not just based on the actuals to date. You also got to take into consideration what's being committed from a PO perspective and track the sort of PO budget actual forecast almost independently of the overarching total budget actual forecast of the project itself. If we are able to establish a framework for funding allocations across departments, often then the same organizations want to use that same framework to enable things like chargeback reporting at varying levels of detail. We already talked about benefits realization, but it is key, and we see, I really think that 2016 and 2017 will be the years that organizations look to address benefits realization in a more wholesale manner and really establish that framework to track results and start to really put some focus on how valid are these benefit estimates in the first place. If you think about how much effort we put in over the years to tracking costs, and we realize the kind of fragility of those estimates, who knows how good we are at estimating benefits. My guess is not so good. And once we start to track benefits more effectively, that will certainly shine a brighter light on that problem. Anyway, so these are the areas. This is not small. I mean, this in itself is probably a bigger discipline than resource management, probably a bigger discipline than schedule management when you break down these fundamental areas that are asked for by customers all the time. And really what we're doing here is providing a better handshake between the worlds of finance and the worlds of PPM. And I really don't want the finance team necessarily having to live within the PPM tool. The same way I don't want the PPM team having to go and surface information or look for information in financial systems. I want to ensure that financial information is a first-class citizen within the Microsoft PPM platform. And more importantly, that the folks involved in the PPM process, project manager, PMO, sponsor, see that financial information in the way that they need to see it, at the cadence that they need to see it, to ensure that they can make better, quicker decisions on their in-flight project portfolio. So that was a mouthful. What I'm going to do now is jump in to the demonstration itself. This is going to be fairly tactical, but the key takeaway that I guess I want to leave you with today is how well integrated the UMT 360 solution is with varying flavors of the Microsoft PPM platform, whether that's 2010, 2013, online, and obviously the new paradigm of 2016 too. By design, I want, as I've said 100 times, I want financial information to be a first-class citizen native within Microsoft PPM system, alongside schedule information, alongside resource information, and other metadata. I want that information to be governable and reportable, just like the other information that I mentioned. So with that in mind, let's open up the solution. Here we're looking at a 2013 Microsoft PPM environment with UMT 360 enabled within the site collection. As I said, I'm going to keep this fairly tactical and really just focus on the financial management capabilities across what I consider to be the traditional project and program lifecycle. So I'm going to leave a lot of the reporting aside, and I'm just going to drill down and open up a project that's currently sitting within in the business case stage. So I'm opening up innovation management framework here. What we're seeing here is the workflow visualization coming from UMT 360. UMT 360 in 2013 and beyond versions of Project Server simply relies on SharePoint Designer as the workflow authoring tool, but adds a whole bunch of additional workflow controls natively to that SharePoint Designer experience, so that you can more effectively establish the investment governance controls across the project and program lifecycle and trigger different events around every stage in the workflow as it pertains to the investment governance of a project and program. And in addition, you get this kind of cosmetic workflow graphic as well that really surfaces and brings the workflow to life. So if we look at this workflow, this highlighted stage here represents the stage we're in. We're in the define stage. As we should know about Project Server or Project Online, obviously one of the cool things about it is that we can now see the information that is needed to be captured at any stage in the life cycle. So I've got project details, cost, benefit, association, strategic impact, risk, and a business case summary report here. What's interesting, and this is the first thing to note about how well integrated 360 is, that the only form that's coming natively here from Project Server or Project Online is project details. The rest are coming from UMT 360. So again, of course, you can organize this any way you want, but to the end user, it is invisible where one solution stops and the other solution starts. We like to say it's integration to the point of confusion. Now, if I click on cost estimates here, again, when we think about building a world-class business case, it would be remiss of us not to look to consolidate cost and benefit estimates. In 360, you can define any number of financial structures. Cost and benefit are obviously the two most obvious and come out of the box. But you get the ability to standardize your financial structures at any level of detail. And just like you can establish templates for enterprise project types in Project Server, you can then associate financial templates to those enterprise project types. So I can surface certain nodes within financial structures for different types of projects, a lot of flexibility in how you administer the financials as it pertains to different types of projects in Project Server. But in this simple instance here, you'll notice that we have the ability to come in and capture time phase cost and benefit estimates. Now this looks pretty basic, but it's anything but, because this is fully integrated within your work, within the whole workflow experience. For example, what I've done here is I've requested financial information to be captured at this stage at the quarterly granularity. Now, it could easily have been the yearly granularity. So you get to establish on a workflow or a stage-by-stage basis in the workflow what information should be captured and other behavior that you expect. So in this case, I asked for information to be broken down on a quarterly basis. Notice how information is automatically spread across the lower time granularity. So you can start by year, go to quarter, go to month, and so on. And that is the concept of financial amplification that I mentioned earlier. But I've also asked for information to be broken down at level 2 within the financial structure. So the ability to have a hierarchical structure within your financial structure is important. But of course, if I wanted more information, I can drill down within the structure that has been established here within the settings. So we see it's 4 levels deep, and we can see the nodes that are being captured here. Again, it can be more complex. It can be also as simple as you like. What I like about this grid is that it gives you some Excel-like freedom, which obviously we like to think that. Not even like to think, but I think today Excel is probably our sort of primary competitor, in addition to status quo, i.e. doing nothing. So what I like about this is I can come into this grid and I can manually enter information as you would expect at any node. But I can also cut and paste, drag and drop, everything that you would expect within the grid. So manually entering information is important, but I don't want to add any burden to a project manager or a sponsor responsible for completing a business case. In other words, I have the flexibility to have nodes within this same grid read only. So if we look at labor here, internal employees, consultants, offshore, types of resources, this symbol here represents the fact that these nodes are being updated automatically from the resource assignments in project. So I have editable nodes, I have read-only nodes, and I can specify that. Now, so how are these nodes being updated? Well, it comes no surprise. There's two ways, at least in Project 2013, of capturing resource information. One's going to be through the resource plan, or the other through task resource assignments at the task level within the schedule. Now, we've opted to pull the resource costs from the resource plan, in this instance, in the early stage planning of this project. So you'll see the resources that have been added to the resource plan here. Here you'll see the financial mapping, and here you'll see the FTE relating to those skills that we think are required. And this financial mapping here is then aggregating automatically back to the financial structure that you see here for the cost estimates. So again, no need for double data entry. You're simply going to complete the resource plan, or you're simply going to assign your resources to the tasks in the schedule, and that information will flow through. And you can confirm through the governance settings on a stage-by-stage basis where to pull those resource values from the resource plan or the schedule itself. So again, the ability to be able to break out the budget costs for a project is certainly important. Now, I could even go to another level of detail. I could start to break down the costs by phase through what we call breakdowns. So I could have, let's say, define, build, test, deploy kind of phases for a project. I could actually have separate views for each one of those phases integrated with the schedule too. But that's another level of detail I'm not going to get into in today's presentation. Now, so we have financial information captured here. We talked about multi-currency a little bit. So the ability to be able to define multiple currencies, specify an enterprise currency within the system is important. So the default currency at the moment is USD for this project, but because I've got Euro and potentially my favorite currency, Great British Pounds, in the system defined already, we can switch between those currencies. And of course, we have the ability to manage time-phased currency rates and change them at any point in the system, and have that reconcile through the reporting. So the ability to be able to have projects managed in different currencies, have the same project managed in different currencies is fully supported, and the ability to manage rates on a time-phased basis is also fully supported. Now, we've broken out the total budget cost for this project, but I also mentioned the importance of the ability to look at breaking down costs by funding source, or what we call Allocation Center. A couple of ways you can do this. So I can take the total cost of this project, and on a percentage basis, which is how we've configured it in this particular example, I can say who's going to fund this project. Look, IT is funding a portion, finance is funding a portion, ops is funding a portion. So if we've broken out on that percentage basis, I could even have an unallocated amount if this didn't total 100%. So that's one way of doing it, on a percentage basis, most likely the easiest way of doing it. The other way of doing it is simply to break down each line item by the cost centers and sort of manually enter the information at that line item level, or integrate with the underlying schedule and pull through the information on a task by task or resource by resource basis based on the cost centers. So being able to break down and look at potential funding allocations is key too. So we've got cost information centralized. Next, let's take a look at the benefit information. So again, just like you saw with the cost structure, I have the ability to also define benefit structures and other financial structures, cash flow, other such things. And so here we're simply asking for the benefits to be broken down by year and at level 2 within the benefit structure, which again, it can be as detailed as you like. So now, of course, other information is going to be captured in the business case, like scoring mechanisms around risk, strategic impact. But I'm not going to go into that today because that's outside of the context of the financial discussion. But all the information is, as I've said, governable. So the workflow was determining the level of financial information required, and reportable. So it's very easy for us to report on any of this information at any time. So whether it's pulling the total cost, benefit here in this kind of one-page summary, standardized financial metrics, ROI, NPV, IRR, based on those allocation centers, we can see which departments, again, finance, IT, ops, were funding or potentially funding this initiative and accruing the benefits. Payback period and other things can also be broken down too. So once the information is entered, it can be reported on at any level within the system. And here's an example of that through that one pager. Now, what I'm going to do is click on this feature here, which is called Associations and Dependencies. On the surface, it looks pretty bland, but this is one of the reasons why Gartner sees us as a visionary in enterprise portfolio management. Now, from a financial perspective, what this allows me to do is map underlying projects to other things, right? So this innovation management framework project, which we're looking at here, is tied back to this investment program, global innovation program, is also onboarding a new IT asset, an application. And we have a placeholder here for an application catalog within the system, because again, 360 is used not just for managing projects and programs, but business and IT assets too. So I can start to map this project to things that it's going to impact, all right? And at that point, I can now start to aggregate financial information against those things. So this project's cost will contribute to the cost of ownership of this application. If I stay within project and program management, I'm going to roll up to the overarching program. Within 360, we support different planning techniques. Program planning is just one of them, where programs are often viewed as an independent investment entity in their own right. And for that state, or for that reason, you need to be able to really treat them as an independent entity from the projects, so they have their own workflow, they have their own metadata and forms. But when you think about creating a portfolio hierarchy, as I mentioned earlier, so it could be departmental, portfolio, program, project, sub-project, we also need the ability to be able to reconcile and record top-down budgets independent of the underlying project budgets at any point. So if I click here at the program budget, this is a budget that's been allocated purely at the program level. This is the top-down budget, and the same behavior could exist at the portfolio level, departmental level, depending on how you organize yourself. So again, we're able to break down program budgets at the program level, program benefits, scoring mechanisms at the program level. If I look at the associations now at the program level, we can see all the different projects in Project Server that are impacting this program, and in turn aggregating costs. So if I click on the project costs now, we're now going to see a direct aggregation of the underlying project costs, whether that's estimates, whether that's the forecast information or actual cost information, automatically aggregated at the program level. So in other words, I get the ability now to compare top-down allocated budget at this level with bottom-up budget automatically rolled up through the system. So if I click on program status, probably the better way to visualize that is going to be through reporting. So we could take a look at like program level cost breakdown over time. So how is this spend? What's the spend pattern look like for this program based on the financial structures that we've established? Or we could take a deep dive and look at both the top-down and bottom-up cost performance. So if we look at the top-down budget here, this is a program budget that's reconciled. If we look at the bottom-up budgets coming from the underlying projects, we see that here. And we can start to bring that together and see the impact based on where the projects are in their life cycle. We can see here some projects are in pipeline, some approved, some are already in flight, and we can start to get a perspective in terms of how they're performing from a top-down and bottom-up financial perspective. But the ability to do that is because we can reconcile budgets at varying levels in the portfolio hierarchy and automatically aggregate financial information at the right juncture in project's life. So I think I spent probably enough time on sort of upfront planning. I think one more thing to mention, if I just return to the Innovation Management Framework project, is the concept of snapshotting. From a financial perspective, it is key. Obviously, snapshots can include other information than just financials, but being able to record and automatically generate snapshots at given points in the workflow is important. For example, you can move into this decision point and have a snapshot automatically triggered through the workflow, recording cost, benefit estimates, metrics, whatever you want to record. If approved, it's going to move into detailed planning to build up the detailed business case. Then we're going to move into the final go, no go, where another snapshot will be created. Well, the benefit of that is I can start to see the differences in my estimates as I move between those two phases. But once I have actually completed this project, I can circle back and start to generate metrics like estimating accuracy. So I can see how accurate my estimates were here based on the first estimate and my second estimate when compared to completed cost or even the forecast cost of the project. So estimating accuracy, again, really is going to provide you a good picture of what's going on. How accurate in my organization am I at estimating here? In this department, maybe we're plus or minus 30%. At this gate, plus or minus 10% at this gate, whatever it may be. So if we maybe move a little deeper into the project lifecycle, maybe we move into the plan stage a little bit before moving into execution itself. So what we're going to do is roll on. So let me just come out of here. Let's just change the grouping here to take a look at projects in their plan and manage phase. We'll open up the payroll system upgrade project that's sitting in the detailed planning stage. Let's make sure it opens in the right view. So we can now see, through the workflow visualization where we are. We're in the detailed planning stage. Now, I'm not going to spend much time here, but this is the way this workflow has been articulated. This is where we expect the PM to pick up that early approved project and start to take it to the next level. That's assigning and name resources, maybe building out a more detailed schedule. Obviously, that's going to have an impact from a financial perspective. We want to get more detailed in the overarching understanding of the cost and also the benefits. We need to start to evolve benefit estimates the same way that we evolve our cost estimates through the life of the project. It's one of the key things we need to do in actually realizing a benefits realization framework. So here we're now going to break out the schedule. But of course, if I go to the costs now, what we're seeing is that we're now requesting information on a monthly granularity and at level 4 within the financial structure. It goes back to what I was saying about the concept of financial amplification. At this stage, this is the information we require, and we're going to force that to be captured at that level. And again, of course, this information can be sucked in natively now from the schedule versus the resource plan if you choose that to be the case. So from a cost perspective, we're drilling down to the next level of detail. I also mentioned the concept of breakdowns. If we look here, I actually have key phases in my project's life of plan, analyze, design, build, test, release and deploy. And we're actually able to drill down now, integrate with the schedule to pull out the cost as it pertains for those phases. So when you start to think about things like earned value analysis and breaking down different chunks within the project's life, within different activities within the project, then it's supported through this breakdown concept, which is normally used, as I say, to sort of break out the macro costs for individual phases within the project's life, integrated with the schedule. Now, of course, you also have the ability to capture more information from a benefit perspective too. But as we expect the project manager to put more effort into assignment of name resources, going from skills to name resources, in building out the schedule itself to the right level of detail, we also want the financial information to follow suit and be captured at the more granular level too. So let's go now and take a look at a project that's in execution and see what happens. The way this workflow is being configured, after this approval point, we snapshot, lock budgets, and move into execution. What I'm actually going to do is pick this up through at the portfolio level and look at cost tracking and reporting and work my way down. So I haven't touched on much of the reporting in the solution, but there's a lot at your disposal. This is a cost tracking dashboard. It's one that is only looking at approved projects that are approved and in flight. And it looks at it from a bottom-up and from a top-down perspective by department. So this is how we've organized the portfolio in this demonstration environment. And we're just rolling up all committed projects or in-flight projects by department, looking at budget actuals forecast, variance derived by forecast compared to budget. But because we can also record budgets at any level in that perceived hierarchy, I can also look at a top-down variance, looking at the top-down allocated budget by department versus the bottom-up forecast from the committed projects, and look at variance there based on that. The ability to be able to then obviously generate these charts which show cumulative budget actual forecast at any level within the portfolio hierarchy is obviously key. But what we're able to do also is automate financial status reporting, which is important. And here you're looking at a drill down in terms of the variance. And although I'm not going to get into dynamic reallocation today, I touched on this subject yesterday in another session. This actually provides the foundation to a dynamic reallocation framework. Because what we look to do is automate status reporting and drive variance. And we group projects into 3 camps. The first camp are projects that are running over cost overruns, probably the most obvious. We're going to make decisions on these, whether to give them more money through a change request, whether to descope, whether to cancel, but it's too early to make that determination. Next, we want to look at the opposite, underspends. These are ones where forecast is less than plan. From a portfolio perspective, from a maximization of value and optimization of spend across the portfolio in a given fiscal period, we need the ability to release money early from these projects and then look at techniques to reallocate those funds. So either give that money to these projects or bring net new projects in from the pipeline. Again, that's a technique to optimize spend and maximize value at any given point in the portfolio. So when you think about dynamic reallocation, it is the better capital stewardship or better usage funds by understanding the economic impact of poor project performance and understanding when to double down on existing projects, when to bring in net new projects to optimize spend and maximize value. Now, the other grouping of projects are potential underspends. These are actually the projects that result in Q4 budget utilization problems. So these are the ones where often year-to-date actuals are less than plan, but the PM is saying, don't you worry about it. I'm going to spend that money by the end of the year or the end of the project. I'm forecasting I'm going to spend the money. And by the end of the year or end of the project, they throw their hands up in the air and say it's just not going to happen. And certainly this tends to happen a lot in Q4, and giving the PMO and financial analysts no time to reallocate the funds and utilize that within that same fiscal to drive value. And so what happens is that money goes doesn't get utilized and value goes begging. So by organizing projects into this kind of views here, you can start to take action. These projects are on a watch list and you may take money back from them. These projects you expect the project manager to free up funds and release automatically. And these projects you're going to make a decision. Am I going to invest more in these or am I going to bring in net new for that? Now, so that is the dynamic reallocation kind of framework or foundation. If I drill down within one of the projects that's experiencing the greatest cost overruns here, you'll see an integrated dashboard that's bringing together both the project resource and schedule and execution information from Project Server with financial information from UMT360 as well as other information. Now, I didn't touch on the concept of strategic yield, but it's a metric that we see being used a lot in terms of being investment viability indicator for a project through its life, through annual planning, through ongoing analysis of the project in execution, as well as a metric used to at the portfolio level to really showcase how effectively you're spending money. In this case, what you can see is yield, which is value over cost, strategic value divided by cost, has actually decreased. It's decreased because value stayed the same, but the cost has increased by 32%. So I'm spending more money to get the same value, therefore yield must degrade. It acts as that investment warning indicator. It is that CFO metric of the project and program portfolio, because it's simply alerting me that there could be a problem here. Do I want to invest more in this? Should I be looking at investing more in something else? To do what? Optimize spend and maximize value at the portfolio level. So in this case, we can see that this project is 32% over budget. The yields come down. And we see this information alongside any other information being captured. We can automate status reporting. So based on the status reports, obviously you're going to be able to generate this in any view you want, but basic information, financial information, resource information, milestone information is all existing side by side. But of course, you can get much deeper from a cost and benefit point of view. So if I drill down within the cost status here, we can see more of a detailed breakdown of the cost performance of this particular project and get as detailed as you like by expanding the metrics. But what I want to do is actually drill down into the project itself and take a look at what's going on. So we can now see visually the project is in execution. The budgets were locked when we came through this gate. So now we can see that costs are approved, benefits are approved. They're locked and can't be changed. But now we want to automate status reporting. So I'm introducing cost tracking and cost forecasts. These dimensions, a dimension is a budget, an actual, or forecast, are explicitly linked. So when approved, budget is automatically copied to forecast. And now we start to track actuals. As a PMO, or person responsible for managing the process, I can open status reports across all in-flight projects. So there's workflow around opening status reports, closing status reports, archiving status reports. So I'm in currently August reporting on July, and I can see the actuals can be entered here, either manually, which I don't recommend. There is also an integration with SAP, Oracle Financials, and other ERP systems to pull the information in automatically for that given open status reporting period, or this can come in through timesheeting. So 90% of our customers do this through ERP integration and simply run that ERP sync as they open the status report. So when the PM opens this, they already see the actuals, and the actuals versus budget is automatically calculated based on that variance. Now, also important to be able to come in here and capture forecast costs. You'll see that these dimensions, actually, let me just open this in edit. You'll see here that these dimensions are linked, because if I open the forecast in edit mode here, these grayed areas are past periods. I can't change for past periods. I can only reforecast for remaining periods. In fact, you can set the system up so actuals automatically overwrites current period for forecast, and then you can forecast remaining. Of course, this can be pulled in from the schedule too, but now I have budget, actuals, and forecasts within the system. When I'm ready to complete my status report, I'd submit it into the system, and it's either then going to be routed for approval, or I'm locked out and I can't make changes. Now there's full ability to come back and look at past periods and see look at an archive status report, or even give people ability, like financial analysts, to go back to past reports and make changes. So a lot of flexibility here. Obviously, that can be controlled through permissions. But the ability now to see budget, actual, forecast is key. Now, this project was running over budget, 32% over budget. So we may want to raise a change request and have that routed for approval, ask for additional funds, ask for the delta. Now, I'm not going to do this now. What I will do is cheat a little bit and copy information. So you have the ability to move information between dimensions. So I'm going to copy from my forecast dimension to my budget table, right? So copy from forecast to budget. So as a PM, I'm going to try and overwrite my budget. The tool is going to say there's no way I'm going to let you do that because this project's approved. You're going to have to raise a change request, and it's going to do that automatically for us. So a change request is now going to be raised based on the delta, and you can see there's now an entry in the log. We can go in, open this change request, learn more about it, see who's approving it. Once approved, if approved, the budget will get updated. If not, we'll just keep an auditable record of those changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause there, because I'm not going to go too much deeper. What I kind of showed you was the ability to integrate financial information, at least from the early stage budgeting into tracking. We didn't get into benefits realization or a whole host of other capabilities as it pertained to financial controls within the Microsoft PPM environment. But what I wanted to really reinforce was that it's almost invisible to user that these capabilities are not being provided through the Microsoft PPM platform. Financial information using UMT 360 does become a first-class citizen within the Microsoft PPM platform, and you can get a lot of benefits from that. So this matrix here really just breaks down, some of the capabilities that we saw before that 360 is bringing to the table, some of which Microsoft Project does part of anyway, but 360 takes to the next level. So with that, I'm going to pause and thank you for your time. If you want to learn more about UMT 360, specifically the financial management capabilities or enterprise program management capabilities or other enterprise portfolio management capabilities that seamlessly extend SharePoint and Microsoft Project Online and Project Server, you can certainly visit umt360.com and learn more about solutions, and more importantly, how to get started today. Getting started is not difficult, as you've seen, seamlessly integrated, so you're only a quick install away from having native financial information within your Microsoft Project Online and Project Server environment. So with that, I'll thank you for your time. I hope you found the session valuable, and certainly reach out to UMT360 to learn more.
All right. Thank you, Ben, for your time and that information, and thanks everyone for watching.